Street Signs and Shaded Goodbyes follows Violet Eastmore and her husband Greg as they wander through loss in the wake of World War II. They're faced with the death of Violet's older brother and the diminishing days of their old black dog, and with all of that as a backdrop, they decide that they're going to take a trip back home to confront their grief. It's a story that deals with acceptance of the end, and acceptance as part of a longer process of grieving and growing through that grief, reflecting on what you've been through and rediscovering the place that you called home. It's one of those things that when you experience loss, as Violet and Greg do, home can start to feel less and less like home. That doesn't mean that it isn't home, but your relationship with that place changes, and that change can be a hard thing to stomach. When I was writing Street Signs and Shaded Goodbyes, one of the things that I aimed to do was to make it so that someone could read a passage where Violet and Greg are headed down Court Street and turning onto Pleasant Street and onto State Street, past an Italian restaurant, and before them is Prescott Park, so that someone could experience that with them and then actually go to the place that the story takes place, go to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, take a trip to Hampton, New Hampshire, head up to Camden, Maine. Even if they can't physically do that, my goal with writing this story was to give people that experience. It's a story that takes place in September 1950, but it was based indirectly on the experiences of a writer wandering around those very same areas in 2021. And for that reason, it's very special to me. You know, a lot of my description is based off of the sensory parts of Portsmouth, of Hampton, of Camden, the taste and the experience of good, strong coffee in low-lit, jazzy coffee shops with the traffic going by outside and the streetlights shining on the sidewalk, street-side seating, contemplative, slow sips of red wine, and moving conversations with people that you care about and people that care about you. And all of this, everything takes place in an area that means so much to me, and hopefully by the end of their experience with the story, these places will mean just as much to other people too. Before sitting down to write the story, I was going through a lot in terms of losing a piece of home that meant a lot to me. We ended up having to sell a house in Hampton that had been in our family for 60 some odd years, since the end of World War II. And the street that that house is on is called Eastmore Lane. And so I took the name of that street and I used it as the last name for Violet. It just so happens that that street in that area of town was the location of Hampton's first airfield. And after World War II ended and a lot of the pilots that used to fly there weren't around anymore, the airfield was replaced with a tract of new neighborhoods, which is where, coincidentally, that house on Eastmore Lane ended up. And so in the story, Greg and Violet have to say goodbye to the things and the places and the people that have made them feel at home. And so as I was writing that story, it was them saying goodbye, but it was also on a deeper level me saying goodbye and using this story as an outlet to work through the grief that I was experiencing as I wrote it. Grief is something that everyone experiences or have experienced or will experience in time. And when they do, hopefully this is a story that is there for them, as it was there for me.